This
Everyone
conference
can
will now be recorded.
say hello to one another. Okay.
Hello, Jackie.
Okay. Jackie, how's everybody feeling?
Hi, we're all
Jackie,
back
how's
to
everybody
normal.
feeling?
Everybody's
Good.
back to normal. The kids never tested positive, just Josh and myself.
Okay.
But
Good. And you're
we're
feeling
good.
well. It was a
Everyone's
mild
feeling well.
case.
Josh is in Utah. He'll be in Utah till Friday.
Okay. That's work related?
It's all work related, yes. So as soon as he tested negative, they were like, "Okay, off you go to Utah." So, but he's well. He's doing good. Sad to miss.
Okay. Good. All right. So let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we have gentlemen. Okay. So we're working now on chapter 7 in our book, page 206, 207, and we've touched upon this, the idea of Ikar and Tafel. Ikar is the main, Tafel is the secondary. Ikar is the main, and Tafel is a secondary, primary and secondary, combinations of different foods. Okay, so as it says on page 207, row numeral 1A, two foods that are blended together. So a spoonful has mixtures of both foods. So that's considered to be a single food. And it requires only one bracha, even if they have not been cooked together. Okay, 208, we have a bunch of examples. Beef stew, right? Meat and potatoes. Okay, and every spoonful that you have has meat and potatoes. Chicken chow mein, right? Which has chicken and vegetables. Fruit cocktail, small pieces of fruit. Stuffed cabbage or peppers. Lasagna has the noodles, has the cheese, right? But every single spoonful that you have of these items has both the food stuff in them and of different brachot, different blessings, right? If it's all the same blessing, then that's simple. But the issue over here is that it's two different blessings, but they are one unit, so to speak. Every spoonful that you have has both of them. That's one category. B on 208, another category. Now, two foods placed side by side on one plate, whether you eat them together or not, is considered two separate foods, right? Let's say I've got, instead of a beef stew, on my plate, I've got a nice piece of meat and I have some potatoes. And every single every single forkful that I have is a combination of meat and potatoes. But that is irrelevant if I'm deciding to eat them together. That is considered two separate foods. So even though I'm deciding that every forkful will have some meat, and so I'll give an example, a dish of meat and vegetable salad, right? Every spoon will have some meat and some vegetables, but if it's two foods side by side on one plate, that is considered to be two separate food items, and each one requires its own blessing. As I said on top of 209, meat and potatoes, the meat and potatoes are not mixed together. Two brachot are going to be required. Okay? C, a food used to enhance the taste of another food. Either they're not combined together, right? In other words, they're side by side on the plate, but it's not two distinct foods. I've got my I have my chicken and I have my ketchup next to it. Okay? Well, or I have my salad, right? The chicken and ketchup was a poor example. Tell me why. Besides that you're insulting the chef by putting chicken onto your
Nobody
would just eat ketchup really by itself like that. So.
Okay, but if I right? And let's say I would decide to have some ketchup by itself. Why was that a poor example that I gave?
Because they'd be the same bracha?
Good.
Yeah.
They'll both be the same bracha, even though those the ketchup is made from tomatoes.
It's a product of it. It's not the straightforward.
Leah is trying to get on, but not connecting. 1 second. Oh, internet. Okay. So that was a poor example. The example they're giving is vegetables with mayonnaise or dressing, potatoes with sour cream. Why is that a better example? Or why is that a proper example? Two separate brachot. Vegetables, bar pri adama, mayonnaise dressing, shahakol. Potatoes, bar pri adama, sour cream, shahakol. So here they're not combined, right? It's two separate. It's one of those plates that you get, that they serve lunches in. Section. It's in a different section, completely different section, right? So over there, why is only one bracha going to be made though?
Because it's only used to enhance.
Exactly, right? I'm not eating mayonnaise, right? The mayonnaise is something that some people do. That's great, right? Right, but that is right there to enhance the other foods that I am having. Okay.
Question, Rabbi.
Yes.
You want to ask your question, sir?
I was going to say, would that apply to like chips and guacamole? Would that be too?
That would be an excellent example, right? And then we're going to get to those cases, right? Or is that two brachos? Is that one bracha? If it's one bracha, which bracha, right? Meaning, am I eating chips and I'm having some guacamole on my chips? In which case, I'm probably making a bracha on the chips, not on the guacamole. If I am using, I want to have some guacamole, right? But I don't want to use my fingers. I need something to scoop it up. So basically, I'm using the chips as a spoon. I'm eating the spoon. I'm eating the chips. But basically, so then I'm eating guacamole, right? But right, and if I really am enjoying both aspects, right? So we'll have to see. That is a great, complicated situation. Yeah, and that's where things get very, very complicated.
And then
Rabbi?
Oatmeal with raisins in it.
Okay, oatmeal with raisins.
Just
Okay,
like
or
stew.
cereal. I'm sorry.
Would be just like the stew, no?
Like the what?
The beef stew with potatoes.
Because they'd be mixed, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, right. So we'll have to see what the din is, right? Right. So far we're giving examples, right, and we haven't yet determined, right. So by the beef stew, the question is, am I having beef with what's the main thing there, right? What's the main thing that I'm enjoying? We'll have to come to that. In the case of Daryl brought up, for those who are online probably can't hear so well, Daryl brought up the question of raisins in my oatmeal.
Yeah.
So there, essentially, I'm eating oatmeal,
Yeah.
right? And I'm throwing in some raisins, cutting in some banana, perhaps, right? Blueberries, whatever it is. That is to enhance, right? Or let's say fruit yogurt, right? I'm not eating strawberries with yogurt. I'm eating yogurt that is being, right? So we're going to see all of these cases. Yes, Leticia.
I was having nachos the other day and I wasn't sure. It had olives and corn chips and cheese and guacamole.
Sounds really good.
And chopped
You can't do that
tomatoes.
to us without ordering in.
Chopped tomatoes, chopped onions.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yes. So we're going to see how we deal with those cases. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Lily.
Rabbi, remember I think it was 2 classes ago with the ODGFP. Didn't it go off of like the one that is you say the Brachot, whatever is whole or your favorite, or is that only on the ODGFP?
Okay, so Lily's bringing up that we had before the order, right? If you've got different items of the same bracha, Lily.
Oh, okay.
So there our question was, right, which should you make the bracha on? And we said, well, if one of them is from the 7 species, that's what you should make your bracha on. And if more than one is of the 7 species, then we go by the order of the verse, which is ODGFP. Okay? But that's when they're all the same bracha. Right? And reviewing that halacha, I have to thank everybody here, because reviewing that halacha with all of you made me correct the mistake that I was making. Because I have like a little snack. I know it's a little bit weird, but I have a snack. I like dates and walnuts.
No, that's not weird.
We love that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know that there are others who are as weird as I am. Good, right? So, and I would normally start with some walnuts, and then start, bringing the dates into the conversation, right? But really, right, walnuts are not of the 7 species. Dates are, and dates are actually number 2 on the list, right? So, since I reviewed this halach with all of you, I thank you. I've been careful to make my bracha on the dates, and then that covers the walnuts, okay? But over here, Lily, the issue is that we have different brachot mixed in over here, okay? So it's a matter of determining, is there a primary and a secondary, that I make the bracha on the primary and not on the secondary, or do I have two individual items over here, even though they're mixed together, and each one will require its own bracha. Okay? Okay, so let's go to 211E. And this is the broadest application of Ikar and Tafel, of primary and secondary. And that is food eaten during a bread meal. Okay? Bread, when eaten during a meal, automatically becomes the Ikar. Bread is considered the mainstay of any meal, and therefore all foods and all beverages, with the exception of wine. Okay? But all foods and all beverages that are eaten as, we discussed this, we touched upon this before, that are eaten as part of the meal as opposed to dessert afterwards, but that which is eaten as part of the meal in order to fill yourself up, all of that is considered secondary to the bread, and it requires no bracha. The foods eaten only for pleasure, like desserts, right, will require a bracha unless they're actually eaten together with the bread, right? But we normally don't have our fruit at the end of a meal or ice cream, right, together with bread, right? So that's not considered the mainstay of the meal. That's not considered part of the main meal, and therefore those items would require their own bracha at the end of the before, even though we're in the midst of a bread meal. The Birkat HaMazon, the blessing, the benching that we do afterwards, will cover everything. The bread, those things that were considered secondary along with the bread, and those things that were not considered and for which I made it's a bracha just on that. Okay, so now comes page 213, determining the Ikar. Okay, and there are factors we're going to take into account over here. Which food is the most desired food?
The guacamole, I'm sorry.
Okay, if that's right, and it is a personal question.
Yes.
It's a personal question. Meaning, we could be eating the same food. For you, it's the
Yeah.
guacamole. For me, it's the cracker, right? Right? And therefore, each of us would make the bracha on that which is the Ikar, the primary, to us. Oh, remind me to tell you afterwards, there's a wonderful young couple moving in next. What number, baby, are you?
12.
Oh, this is.
I talked to Lou today.
Oh,
We're
it's
on
talked
the
to Lou.
phone. We're so
Very
excited.
good.
We're
We're
so
all in.
excited,
Good.
Rabbi.
Very good. Nice.
They're gonna come tomorrow.
Good. Beautiful. Okay. So the food which is most desired, and if it really is a toss up, right? I like the two of them together. I liked my beef stew. It's not that, I like the meat more than potatoes more than the meat. Then we'll go with whichever is greater quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the special status of the 5 species of grain. Okay, grain, right, which is used to make bread, right, even if it's not in bread form, has a certain importance, a certain, it's more primary. We'll see all these examples now. So generally the Ikar food which one specifically desires. Secondary food is to enhance the primary food, is the tafel. Okay? Whether or not one enjoys eating the secondary food is immaterial, it's irrelevant. Nor is there any points attached to which is of greater quantity. Okay? If you like this part, that's the one you make the bracha on. Bananas or strawberries with cream. Right? So generally, what are you eating over there? You want to have bananas, you want to have strawberries, and you want to flavor them with cream. But if you are a cream fanatic, and you want your cream, you want your mayonnaise, and therefore, but you want to just mix in some, I don't know, I don't want to say tuna, that's a bad example because then it's all shahakos.
Mhm.
But I want to, I don't know, what do you have with mayonnaise? I want to mix in some potatoes. But really, I'm eating, right? You're eating that, right? If me, right, potato salad, which actually is basically potatoes and mayonnaise.
Mhm.
For me, I'm eating potatoes,
Mhm.
right? For you, you might be eating mayonnaise. I don't know, right? Commercially flavored yogurt, right? The fruit is added to flavor the yogurt. The yogurt is the Ecar. Right? That's clearly I'm eating yogurt. See, even though the yogurt is shahako and the strawberries are hadama, or the blueberries are ha'etz, right? And even though that's a more important blessing, but that's not the point over here. I'm eating yogurt. And the strawberries and the blueberries are there to enhance the yogurt. I will make the bracha on that. But let's say I have a dish of strawberries to which I'm adding some yogurt. So there, the question is, what am I desiring to eat? Am I desiring to eat strawberries and I'm flavoring them with some yogurt? Then I make the bari pri adama on the strawberries. I want to have some yogurt and I'm flavoring the yogurt with my strawberries. Then I make shahakal on the yogurt and nothing on the other one. Okay? And as always important, don't think that you're being very, very devout and making a bracha on the other one also. That becomes a unnecessary bracha, which we're not allowed to do. Right? So it's not like, let me be extra over here. Right? That's not how it works. Number 3, vegetable and dressing, potato and cream. Right? Normally, the vegetable potatoes are the Ikar. Okay. But this is, as I mentioned to you, Simone, about your guacamole, this is wholly subjective. Whatever the person eating considers that to be the main thing, that's where the bracha is made and not on the other things. 2:14. At times where you can't determine which you primarily desire. Right? Which one are you really enjoying eating? Right?
What if you're eating a hamburger? It's a bread.
Oh,
Send it.
bread,
So the bread takes.
bread, hamotzi, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's an easy one
Mhm.
because there, actually, everything is inside the bread. It's all, right? That one bite, right? But
Mhm.
even if I had a bread meal and then during that meal I have some meat or hamburgers not in bread, nevertheless, being that is
You had bread.
you had bread and that's
Mm-hmm.
regular fill up food, right? Fill up in the meal food, that is secondary to the bread and no blessing is made on that. Okay. But if at times it may be difficult, 214, right? For a person to determine which food does he primarily desire.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go with the greater quantity. Okay? For example, right? Let's see the example. See a fruit cocktail, right? So I like the peaches, on which bracha I would make the
Height.
ha'etz. I also like the pineapples,
Mm.
on which I'm making
Ha'adama.
ha'adama. Okay? So the peaches are not added to enhance the taste of the pineapples, nor the pineapples there to enhance the flavor of the peaches. Therefore, if I really like one more than the other, I make the bracha on that. If not, I'll make the bracha on whichever is the majority of the mixture.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let's say I put some cream on top of it, some whipped cream on top of my fruit cocktail. So will that affect things?
If you desire the cream more.
Okay, fair enough. If I'm having cream along with some fruit cocktail, then I make shahakol. But presumably, I'm having fruit cocktail with some cream on top, right? And therefore, whichever bracha is I prefer. I like them both the same. Whichever is the majority, that bracha will be made. Even now, normally we say if something is a borei pri ha'etz,
Mm-hmm.
and I mistakenly made borei pri ha'adama, it's okay because the tree does come from the ground. If something is borei pri ha'adama, and I make mistakenly on it a borei pri ha'etz, that's no good. I need to repeat the bracha because the adama, the strawberries do not grow on a tree.
Mhm.
Right? But the apples grow on a tree that grows from the ground, right? So even though over here, but in this case, even though over here I'm making borei pri ha'etz, that's on both my peaches and my pineapple, that's fine because that is the Ikar. And that then covers everything else.
Mhm.
Okay? Even though I'm making a bari priya 8s on things that grow from the ground and they're not bari priya 8s. But it's not that I'm making bari priya 8s on them. I'm making bari priya 8s on my peaches. And there's no need for a bracha on the pineapple because either I prefer the peaches or there's majority peaches over there.
Mhm.
Stuffed cabbage. Okay? Stuffed cabbage, is that a uniquely Jewish dish or? Okay. Stuffed cabbage is good, huh?
Normally we should make stuffed cabbage
Huh?
all the time.
Okay. When I get to matzo balls, okay. But until then. Okay, stuffed cabbage, chopped meat enveloped in cabbage leaves. Okay? What do you enjoy more? Do you enjoy the meat? Are you having meat with some cabbage? Are you having cabbage with some meat? What do you enjoy more? If I don't enjoy one more than the other, I love my stuffed cabbage. The two of them together is magical. That's what I enjoy. So therefore, I would look at then which is majority. Normally, is a greater quantity, so therefore you make shahakol. If the cabbage were plentiful, then you make ha'adama, right? And once again, even though shahakol would cover the meat and, b'di eved, shahakol covers everything, right? So even though shahakol will cover the meat and the cabbage, but hadama covers the cabbage but not the meat, but I'm not covering that. I'm making the bracha on one and the other one does not need the bracha. Okay. If the majority is unknown, then you'll make shahako. Why is that, my friends?
When in doubt.
When in doubt, you'll make the bracha that will cover both.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Shahako covers everything.
Oh, other food.
Right? Not ideally you're making the proper bracha, but if I made shahakal on anything, it passes. Right? So that's why I will go with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, chocolate covered raisins or nuts. Okay, so again, am I having chocolate?
Of course.
Right? And in order to calm my guilt of all this chocolate, I want to have some added healthy things like some nuts or raisins, or I'm having raisins that with the chocolate enhancing the flavor, right? The question is, right? So here, what do chocolate covered raisin nuts should recite the bracha, whichever grain he primarily desires? One who has no clear preference, then it'd be difficult to decide which bracha to recite. Some poskim are of the opinion that the fruit is the Ikar, the main, and therefore Bar Priya eitz. Others argue that the chocolate is the Ikar, and therefore you should make Shahako. Okay? A third opinion requires two brachot. Ha'etz on the fruit, chocolate on the chocolate, since neither is the Ikar. Interesting. Faced with this different opinion, it is preferable to recite only ha'etz on chocolate-covered almonds or raisins. And that's for a very interesting reason. Right? There are those that say, how does the cocoa bean grow?
In the ground, in a tree.
From a tree.
On a tree.
Yeah, on a tree.
So there are those that say the proper bracha to make on chocolate, right?
But it's a product.
Yes, right?
That breaks the rules.
Yeah. We don't.
Yeah.
We make shahakol,
Okay.
right? But in this situation where you're unsure which bracha to make, right? Yeah, okay, I'm not sure, right? Yeah, chocolate covered raisins are nuts. Decide which one you like and make your bracha on that. Okay, 216. The 5 species of grain are almost always considered to be the Ikar. Okay? They have a certain importance because these are staple foods, right? The grains are considered to be staple foods. Okay, so let's see some examples on 217. Cherry pie. Okay, so am I eating the pie or am I eating the cherry? What? Right? Or is it the two of them together? Right? So, well, over there's usually more filling than crust. So according to what we said before, right?
Quantity.
If you like them both, you go with the quantity. Not in this case. Even though there's more cherry filling than crust, it requires a mizonos. Okay? So anyone who eats the pie, even though I really like the filling, right? But I will make a mizonos. Blintzes, potato cheese blintzes, require only a mizonos. Right? Now again, if there are certain just one second, I'm sorry. There's a problem here. Please reach out to Alan Berezovsky, period. He handles this, period. I have no idea how to deal with that, period. Yeah, so if I'm right, if I mention a food that, I'll share with you guys some very funny thing. Where did I send this? Yeah. What's a phrase that makes total sense to most Jews, but 0 sense to anyone else? Okay. Here's the list. When is candle lighting? When is candle lighting? Right? Makes right.
That's funny.
Where can I wash? Right? You go to a restaurant, you have some bread. Where can I wash? Right? Imagine walking into a non-kosher restaurant. Hi, where can I wash? I don't know.
At home.
At home before you come. Yeah. Yeah. I'm having meat for lunch because I'm having meat for dinner. What? What's the shot? What's the understanding over there?
If you have meat, you
I'm already going to be flashing at night, so I might as well have some, right? Yeah. Did anyone tear toilet paper? Right? Before Shabbos. Right?
Nice.
Okay, this I don't know if you guys will know yet. What was yesterday?
Hmm. What was yesterday?
What was yesterday?
Chodesh? Was it
For the
something like that?
That's when we're counting the Omer.
Ah.
When we're counting the days from Pesach to Shavuot. So you don't want to ask someone what night is it tonight, because if they haven't yet counted and they say tonight is this, then they can't make a blessing. So we ask, what was yesterday?
What was yesterday?
Yeah.
Nice.
He can't talk. He just washed his hands.
My Brazilian guests learned that.
Huh?
I had my girlfriend, we're friends since she's 10 years old,
Yeah.
and she came to the house. This is the second time, and she's so cute. She's learning so much.
Right.
She washed with her husband.
Right. That's a milk fork.
That sounds so crazy.
Or that's a meat knife. Right? Are we dairy yet? Right? What's that?
Are we there yet?
After you eat some meat.
Right. Is it 6 hours since we had meat? Are we dairy yet? Yeah. So there are a lot of. So if what made me think of that is if I mentioning any terms or any foods that people are somewhat unfamiliar with. Natalie always laughs. We once had this we living in Israel. We had a very sweet young lady over for Shabbos lunch, and she was vegetarian. And without thinking, and she really didn't know, really Jewish, but really didn't know almost anything. And I said to her that, I wanted to reassure her, because I know she's vegetarian, you don't have to worry. The cholent is parava. And she smiled sweetly and said, thank you. And now looks at me like, are you crazy? Right? You just said to her, the gollywog is bollywog.
Right.
That's what you just said to her.
Right.
The cholent, she doesn't know what a cholent is. She doesn't know what a parva is. So she leans over and said, the stew is vegetarian. And she said, oh, thank you. But sometimes you forget that. So if I'm talking about any right, potato knishes. Knishes, do non-Jews have knishes? No, a knish. It sounds like a knish, right? That's just not yeah. Okay, so potato knish is the dough, and you have the mashed potatoes inside, right? So that's going to go with the dough, mizonos. Cholent, the stew, right? So the cholent is usually barley, beans, potatoes, and meat all mixed in, but barley, right? And therefore, right, even though it's majority not barley,
Mm.
Okay, but that's one of the grains, and therefore you will make a mizonot on that. Dry cereals, turn to page 218. Any cereals containing grain requires a mizonot. Okay, look at F now. Breaded flounder or cutlets, right? They use breadcrumbs on it or matzah meal on it.
Mm.
So there, even though that's right, basically I'm not eating matzah meal. I'm eating chicken cutlets. I'm eating fish, but it's fried fish, right? Breaded, or whether it's baked or fried doesn't make a difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there, we would make a mizonos on that, because once again, the is the primary. However, there are certain cases, number two, where the grain is not considered primary. Okay, let's look on 219, the little one over there, A1, Gefilte fish.
Mm.
Okay, what is Gefilte fish?
It's the fish that's in the little jar.
The
But I don't know.
It's
but
like a
it's
mixture,
matzah meal.
right?
It's matzah
It's
meal.
like a grind.
Yes, okay. So Gefilte fish is fish, basically like fish patties, right? They come in jars, and those are usually, well, I shouldn't say. Some people might enjoy them, right? Right? They
We're food snob over here. We don't eat from the jar.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm guilty.
You enjoy it?
I do.
Good for you. Good for you.
They're
Keep them in business. Someone's got to keep them in business. Taking one for the team.
You
Gabriella.
didn't
Thank you.
get square yet.
You like it?
No, but my husband does say he says it's an acquired taste.
Okay.
I love
Okay.
gefilte fish.
So when they say it's an
guys.
acquired taste, I always wonder, why would I want to acquire that taste? Like I don't like liquors, right? I just don't like these bourbons and scotch, and like
Yeah.
people say it's an acquired taste, and I say, why would I want to acquire the taste of something that costs $100 for a bottle?
What do you drink, Rabbi?
Huh?
Wine?
I'm a connoisseur of fine Kedem grape juice. That's what I am. Yes. Yes. I don't even like wine
They're
that much.
delicious,
Huh?
right? They're delicious.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
that was the only one.
No,
I don't prefer wine.
though I do like the Bartanura wine. But it's like a sweet wine. I don't like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so gefilte fish, people sell it though in a log, and those, if you just bake those
Like a loaf.
like a loaf,
Yeah.
right? Those I
boil
do
it, put
enjoy.
in a hot water.
You could also boil it,
Yeah.
but we prefer to.
You put in oven.
Yeah, we just bake it. Just bake it. Yeah, and it's very good. If
I
you
don't
want,
know how to
if you want to try to
try
speak to
that.
Natalie, she'll
Yeah.
yeah.
We usually get the log and put in the water.
Okay.
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, but either way. But the idea of gefilte fish is as follows: one of the more difficult laws of Shabbos is borer, is separating, picking out the bad. Now, when you're having fish and you have little bones, basically the only way to eat it is to pick out those bones, right? And that is a problem on Shabbos. And that's why Jews have this idea of gefilte fish, which is boneless, because it's all ground up. Any small bones get ground up. Okay? Now, it's right. So that's why Jews have gefilte fish, because of the Shabbos concerns. Okay?
Oh, I never knew
So it's
that.
prepared with matzah meal, but nevertheless, it requires only shahakol. This is going against the rule that we said that the 5 grains are always the Ikar. Why? Because the matzah meal is generally added to hold the loaf together, not to enhance its taste, not for nourishment. It's there to hold the loaf together, and therefore it does not have importance. Cheesecake.
Just one sec. Have you
Yes.
guys made the gefilte fish from scratch?
No, we don't. Yeah,
That would be a process.
we're not big fans of that. Yeah, yeah. What we do on Shabbos when we're having fish, we just usually just have salmon, right, which comes already, filleted. Yeah. Cheesecake. Everybody loves a good cheesecake, right?
Mhm.
Cheesecake with a thin bottom crust that serves no purpose other than to hold the cheese together. Therefore, it will not have its importance, and the bracha would be shahako. But we know that that crust on the bottom is delicious, and it adds tremendous flavor, even though it's certainly the minority. There's more cheese crust on the bottom, right? But only mizonos is required. One may assume that generally the proper bracha for cheesecake is going to be mizonot, because generally, right, the crust on the bottom is a graham cracker sort, whatever it is. It's done in it is something that adds flavor to it. Okay. Another issue is when we have liquids. Take a look in 220, again, towards the bottom over there. Barley or noodle soup. If the barley or noodles are in the majority, or if the primary intention is the barley or noodles, that's easy. Then you make mizonot. Now, the barley soup we're talking about over here, is not the barley soup that I'm familiar with. That when Alan makes a barley soup, it's like one thick mixture. There's no soup. It's not like soup and noodles, right? But what he's talking about over here is where you have soup and barley, soup and noodles. You have a clear broth, and you also have some barley or noodles swimming around over there. So there, if the primary intention is the barley and noodles, or the majority, then you make mizonot. If the main intention is the soup, and the soup is the majority, you would make shahako on the soup, followed by a mizonos on the barley or noodles. Because over there, it's like two distinct items on your plate, so to speak. Okay? So you would do, if you want to have soup, and there also is barley or noodles, you make two brachot. Want to have your noodles. If the noodles or the barley is what your main thing is, or majority, mizonos and finished. But otherwise, how about a canadle? Canadle or a matzo ball, right? You know, I always think that when non-Jews go to a supermarket and they see the kosher section, they must think these Jews, they have the strangest eating habits. All they eat is matzo balls, matzah, gefilte fish, and grape juice.
That's what I used to think.
Right.
I honestly used to think that when I used to be in the grocery store. I used to say, I don't know if I would want to be
Limited to just this.
because they're very limited. I literally didn't think that you guys didn't have options.
That's so
That's
I love
funny.
that honesty. I've never thought that. That's
That's great.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
live on great.
matzo ball.
Huh?
I could live on matzo ball. I love matzo
Matzo balls are delicious.
I love
But that's, they think that's all you ever see there, right? Right?
And the egg noodles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very, very, a very limited selection over there.
Oh.
And people don't realize that's, I guess, is the uniquely Jewish foods that most of us rarely eat,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
I haven't had gefilte fish or Pesach now he
Since
makes
Pesach
matzo
last
balls.
year,
Yeah. But okay.
Mm.
A canadle, matzah dumpling, or better known as a matzah ball, in soup. Okay, in the case of a canadle soup, it's difficult to ascertain whether the soup requires its own bracha. The amount of soup, the size of the matzah ball, the intention of the one eating it are all factors. If one's eating the soup together with the matzah ball, so that's simple. Basically, every spoonful has the matzah ball in the soup. So then the soup is there. I'm eating matzah balls and there's some soup along with it. That's easy. Only mizonos. Otherwise, though, but if it's like separate entities, I want my soup and I want my matzah ball. So then you would make 2 brachot. Okay, mushroom and barley soup. Maybe that's what. Okay, that's what they're differentiating. Barley soup is when you've got barley floating, right? Mushroom barley is when it becomes one unit. Or cholent. Cholent is that stew, right? In common mushroom or vegetable and barley soup or cholent barley, the combined solid parts are the major component of the soup. Therefore, you'd make only mizonot, regardless of the proportion of the barley to other vegetables. Why is that? Because it's the 5 grains. And the 5 grains is always what we go with. Okay. Crackers with jam or peanut butter, right? Or guacamole, okay? If, as is commonly the case, the purpose of the jam is to flavor the crackers, right? The crackers are the Ikar, and one recites only mezonot. If one desires to eat jam or peanut butter independently of the cracker, so then 2 brachot must be said. Okay? That's when the cracker has its own flavor, its own entity. Take a look at note 61 on the bottom there, 223. One who eats a bland tasting cracker merely to hold the jam or the guacamole would make no bracha on the cracker. This cracker is being used in place of a spoon or fork, not for food purposes, even though you are eating it, and thus loses its status completely. Okay? So the guacamole on crackers. If you're flavoring your crackers with guacamole, right? Simone will be very upset with you, but if that's what you're doing, you make mizonos. If you're having your guacamole because you love your guacamole, so then, if it's also a flavorful cracker, you make 2 brachot. If the cracker is a bland cracker, just in order to be able to scoop your guacamole, you only make the bracha on that. Cake with frosting or cream. Okay, so there you're eating cake, right? And the cream is going along with it. Ice cream cake. Interesting. Right? Those Carvel cakes. Interesting that this is different than the cheesecake. I'm not sure why this is different than the cheesecake. Because he's going to say you're going to make a bracha, a mazonos on the cake, followed by shahako on the ice cream. However, when the ice cream layer is very thin and serves only to enhance the flavor of the cake, only mazonos is said. Interesting. I'm not sure. Why is this so different than the cheesecake, where you make the bracha you make mazonos and cover the cheese filling of the cheesecake?
Is it because they have almost equal amounts as far as the ice cream and the cake part? Because with the cheesecake, it's not a lot.
I'm sorry?
With the cheesecake, it's not a lot of the graham crackers.
So on the contrary, right, Danielle? So if over there, like we can learn some Gemara now, so kal v'chomer, if over there we have a little bit of crust and a lot of cheese, nevertheless I ignore the cheese and make the bracha on the crust. So the ice cream cake, where I've got in the ice cream cake also, right? If in the ice cake, if I have more crust, then more of the cake, then certainly, I know what it might be. The ice cream cake, it's really just very thin. It's just, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why the ice cream is more important than the cheesecake that is going to require its own bracha. Is it that there's less of the cake there? Very little of the cake there?
Maybe.
Those Carvel ice cream cakes, the black part is the best.
Isn't there some cakes though that are like
Isn't it?
half?
Yeah, I don't know of a consistent amount in a cake,
So good.
like an ice cream
Always
cake. Like
tell me
it's
still
very
about you.
varied
Yes.
amount.
I've seen somewhere it is the majority of the ice cream.
I've
And
seen
Yeah.
the
then
ones that I've
there's
seen and had, it's majority ice cream.
Okay, but it's also majority cheesecake,
Right.
cheese, then cake.
Mm.
I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Right? When the ice cream layer is very thin, only to enhance the flavor of the cake, mazonos. If in doubt, one should first like shahako or better. Okay, I'm not sure. Ice cream cone is easier. Okay, if you have one of these tasteless cones, basically it's there just to hold the ice cream, and therefore it's like that cracker that's just to hold the guacamole, and you don't make a bracha on that at all. If it is, oh, maybe that's the difference. Okay, if it is a sugar cone, if it has its own flavor, then you would make 2 brachot. Okay, maybe that's the difference. I'm eating ice cream cake. I'm sorry, I'm eating cheesecake. That's what I'm eating. So we look at the cake aspect as the main make mazonos. Here I'm eating ice cream, right? I'm not eating ice cream cake, right? I'm serving ice cream in the guise of a cake, right? So therefore, it's going to have its own essence, its own importance, like ice cream in a sugar cone or an ice cream. Yeah, it's an ice cream sandwich. The ice cream is without doubt the Ikar and requires shahako, but the sandwich adds taste and requires a bracha. So one would first make a bezonos on the cake part, and then a shahako on the ice cream.
Rabbi,
Yes.
for an ice cream cone with a sugar cone with ice cream, would you say the bracha first on the sugar?
Yeah, you probably would make first on the cone, mazonos, and then on the ice cream. Okay? Dry cereal with milk, so that we discussed before, right? The main thing is the cereal, no milk, no bracha on the milk, and you put in some raisins, bananas, apples, whatever you put in there, all of that is considered secondary to the cereal. You make a bracha on that. Now, let's say I made a bracha on the cereal, right? And then what happens? You finish eating the cereal, and then what's left? The milk. Right? Bracha or no bracha on the milk?
No bracha.
No problem.
Good. Even though I'm now eating the milk without any cereal, the cereal is finished. So now I'm having just milk, but it doesn't make a difference because the bracha that I made on that, now of course if I'm going to have a cup of milk afterwards, that's something else. But what's left there, the bracha made on the cereal exempted that milk. Okay. But let's say, take a look at 226. Getting late, sorry. Okay. Let's say I'm having the cherry pie, we said, even though there's a lot more cherry filling than the crust, it's a cake, 5 grains, mizonos. But let's say I want to start with some of the cherry filling. And then I'll go into the cake.
Then that becomes the Ikar.
It doesn't become the Ikar, but it can't be exempted by the cake because I haven't had any cake yet. Right? It doesn't, well, the Ikar means that becomes the Ikar as opposed, right, and overrides the other. It's not that it becomes the Ikar as much as I'm having cherry filling. Right? I'm not having cake yet.
If it became the Icar, you wouldn't have to say a bracha on the mazonos.
Correct. That's why I'm shying
that's
away.
what
Right? That's an excellent point, Gabrielle.
Yeah.
If it became the Ikar, that I would not make, right, but it doesn't become the Ikar. It's a separate unit now. Right? One of each cherry pie, but eats first the filling alone, and then the crust must recite 2 brachas. If he eats the crust and filling together, as is normally eaten, he recites no bracha on any remaining filling, like on the remaining milk that you don't make a bracha. Right? Number 3, no bracha is made on milk remaining.
So what about someone who I'll wait till you're done.
Yeah.
So what about someone who likes frosting off of the cake?
Okay, that's an excellent example. Right? If I'm having cake with frosting, what bracha do I make? Wait, if I'm having cake with frosting, I'm making mizonos, right? And if there's any frosting left over at the end, and I right? No bracha. But if I'm leading with the frosting, right? Then not that becomes the Ikar, but I need to. That's its own standalone entity. I make shahako, and now when I have the cake and the frosting, I'll make mizonot. Okay, guys, we'll call it over here.
So what are we
Yeshikach,
doing
everybody.
next week?
Next, I think we'll spend like either 1 or 2 more weeks on brachas,
Nice.
and then we're going to move on.
It's been great.
It's been a great review for me. So really, it's no, seriously,
You're welcome.
it's helping. I thank you. I do thank you.
And then after that, what are we gonna do, Rabbi?
After that, should we do kashrut? Should we do Shabbos?
Ooh, they're both so
Shabbos.
good.
Okay, Lily has spoken.
What about Passover?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll show you which book I want everybody to get. Actually, let me show you.
Send it to us,
Yeah. Let me do that. Yeah, that was the easiest way to do it. Yeah,
What
makes
about
no sense.
Passover?
What about?
Passover.
We'll do Passover as we get closer to Passover.
Right. I remember when I met Steve, I wish work in Richmond. I wish to go to Richmond once a month. And I didn't know the medical to Richmond, he grew up on an Orthodox Jew. And afterwards the family decided not to be Orthodox anymore. And I had told him I met Steve, he never told me about growing up Orthodox and was Passover's coming. He said like, call me Monday after Passover, have a great holiday. And I laughed. I came home and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, we had a.
He called me on Monday.
When we lived in Israel for a while, we had a wonderful woman from China who would help us around the house with the kids and we now that I repeat this every year. She would say, "No like Pesach,
No like
no like Pesach,
No.
clean, eat, no like Pesach."
I don't know how to put it, but Jewish people or the religion goes off of the lunar year.
Say it again. Yes, lunar year.
Do Jewish people celebrate the lunar New Year?
So I don't know what the Lunar New Year is. I heard on the news it's the Lunar New Year.
All I know is I get red envelopes.
Is what?
I get red
It's
envelopes.
Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
Okay, so we follow a lunar schedule, okay, a lunar year, but for us, the first month of there are 12 lunar months. The first one is Nisan, is the Pesach, right? So now is not the start of our lunar year, right? In other words, a solar year has, well, I'm not even sure of that, right? How you determine that, right? But a lunar year, it's 12 lunar cycles. So which one is going to be the first one is somewhat arbitrary. So the Torah tells us, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, this month that you're leaving Egypt is the first of the months. That's why we go by that. Why China, so the Chinese, I don't know. Right? But there is nothing unique about any lunar cycle. Right? The lunar cycle is the moon's, right, orbit around Earth. Yeah. So so this lunar, I heard in the news also, it's the Lunar New Year. No clue. Yeah. Not from us.
It's just about the new moon that falls between January 21st and February.
These cough drops are not, it doesn't have a hexture on it. If it's medicine, does it need a hexture?
These do need a hechsher, and there are many. First of all, Ricolas, usually the standard Ricolas usually have a hechsher, and there are other, right? And the reason why this would need a hechsher, even though you're taking it for medicinal purposes, is because it's also a candy of sorts.
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
So yeah, it's a candy of sorts.
What flavor
also.
is that one?
This is honey herb.
Well, but with a lot of medicines, the main concern would be the capsule ones, right? Because those are usually made out of like gelatin.
Yes.
That would be
yes.
like
Tablets are good. Good night.
Yeah.
tablets are invariably fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
when it's
capsules are things you want to
Yeah.
look for. Because almost universally.
Okay.
pork belly.
Good night, Leticia. Good night,
Good
Jackie.
night,
Good night,
Shane. Good night,
Esther. And good
Rabbi.
night, Yisroel.
Good night.